I'm personally a fan of older crime writers like Jim Thompson, and Wrote the Killer Inside Me, and The Grifters, and The Criminal, and a bunch of others. There's a guy named George V. Higgins who wrote a book called The Friends of Eddie Coyle. He also wrote one called, I think it's called Kogan's Trade, which was turned into a movie called Killing Them Softly. The Richard Stark novels, The Man, which I think there was a Mel Gibson movie based on one of those. The Man with the Getaway Face, those kind of things. But they're all very gritty, kind of grounded crime stories that, oddly enough, are about flawed anti-heroes. Like, the Parker novels, Parker's not a nice guy at all, but there's something about him that makes you root for him. So I think that was definitely an influence.
What I find interesting is, I'm very accustomed to that kind of flow of a crime novel. They tend to be small and it's existing in the dark corners of some urban environment. Obviously, with a game like this, with the ambitions that Lincoln has, he's trying to sort of take over the entire city. Was it interesting to try to maintain those aspects of crime fiction, even though the game itself is telling a story that sounds to me like slightly different?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we have the set piece missions and things like that. But one of the things that Hayden was talking about earlier, which is the crime rackets. So as you move through the game, we'll use downtown as an example. The crime rackets there are construction fraud and extortion, and those are kind of tucked away. Like, obviously it's a game, so we have to take some license, figure out, hey, how do they exist and interact with the, in terms of the placement in the game world. But they are kind of couched in this idea of like, the average person on the street, yeah, maybe they think there's something shady going on, but they don't know for sure. So it's the video game version of that. So these are these little crime areas that are kind of scattered around that involve these criminal rackets.
Actually, the hideouts themselves. So at the center of every criminal racket, there's kind of a hideout, which is one of your objectives, and those are often hidden in plain sight. So you can quite easily kind of stalk past them, walk past them in the game, and not even realise that they're there. And that's another important part is having some of these things with public fronts to them, and having this ecology in a living city where all this stuff is just sort of there, but it's not kind of signposted for you.
Christine, how would you describe how Lincoln plays? Obviously, he's very effective with weapons, but his objectives doesn't sound like just bursting in guns and blazing. It may not work in every single instance.
Yeah. So again, one of our kind of core pillars is this idea of every player story is unique, and we wanted that to translate on the macro level. And we'll talk a little bit about that later in terms of some of the choices you make as you go through the game, and how that can make your experience evolve. But we also wanted it to be on the moment to moment and the choices that you're making in the heat of combat, before you even go into combat, the tactical choices that you make. So, so this is a good kind of image to talk to here, where Lincoln is able to go into any combat space, guns blazing, if that's the way you want to play, and we offer you kind of ways to kit Lincoln out so that he can be successful, and now you can go with a flak vest and a machine gun, and really arm himself to the teeth, bring in a hit squad to go with him, to roll with him, and help him out, in kind of the guns blazing approach. And then we have the other extreme, which is stalking approach, where it's not necessarily meant to be kind of a ghost approach where you go through and you're never spotted or seen, because again, Lincoln's out to tear this organization down and rebuild something on top of it. But we definitely want you to feel like a stalker as you go through these missions, and you can literally go through almost all of our combat spaces, doing silent takedowns and using your silent pistol like Lincoln's doing here. And then there's variants in between. I think the thing that I've been kind of happy or pleased to see in the last couple months as we've been play testing the game and starting to show it outside the team and having to play it is how kind of easily people seem to move between those two extremes and find kind of a comfortable middle ground for themselves. And whether it's kind of going in guns blazing at first and then losing the enemy to mop up, or going in stalking to take out some of the big guns and kind of soften up the enemy, and then go in and toss the grenades that they picked up along the way. But yeah, we're really trying to, again, there's no right way to play the game. We don't reward you for playing a specific way. The only wrong way to play the game is if you get yourself killed. There's another one of our mantras, is idea of no failure but death. That we really didn't want it to be prescriptive and say you have to play the mission this way, you have to accomplish your goals this way. Although we do have some setups in the game that are narrative driven. Most of the time we just kind of let you go and let you play how you want to.
And that extends to the ways in which you can take down the criminal operations that are within the city, that, something like construction, there isn't sort of one way. You find sort of all the vulnerabilities of that operation and choose which one you want to go after.
Yeah, I mean, just getting really kind of into the game design mode here, but the way that it works is that Lincoln figures out that in order to kind of cut off the head, you want to, cut them off at the base, right? You want to start tearing down the stuff at the bottom of the foundation, and then everything will collapse. And that ties into the mob theme of it's all about kicking up, right? And we're constantly referring back to that in the game that Jimmy Kavar, who runs the construction fraud racket, can't make enough money to kick up to Tony Durazio, who was the bald dude in the trailer there. That guy can't kick up to Uncle Lou Marcon, who can't kick up to his brother Sal. So it just becomes this kind of, again, I can swear.
It's an M-rated game.
Yeah, it's that whole thing of ship always rolls downhill, right? So when Sal gets upset, it all rolls downhill, and Tony gets a phone call because, they aren't able to pick up. But in order to do that, again, it goes down to the guy on the street, that Jimmy Kavar, who runs the construction fraud racket, who's kind of this underboss that runs that. You have to damage him enough that he kind of, comes out or makes a mistake or does something that allows you to attack him, take him down, take over that racket. But the ways in which you do that are myriad and varied and really up to you. So, you can hunt through the district looking for these sham construction sites, and kind of take those down, kill some of his enforcers who are keeping protesters away from the construction sites, steal his stash. He's been stealing money from the mob, and he's got a bunch of money put away for a rainy day, which he's trying to get to now because he has to kick up because you're causing so much damage. You can steal that from him. You can just drive around if you unlock some grenades or whatever, drive around and destroy some of his trucks because they're selling construction goods. And this is just, again, one racket out of many that we have in the game, and each of them have a bunch of different ways that you can attack them, and you kind of choose. Today I'm interested in creating tons of mayhem, so I'm going to drive around and blow up a bunch of trucks. Today I'm really interested in going in stealthy and trying to take out some of his enforcers or steal his stash without even